Hey, what's up? It's Nick Pagliochini. As you are well aware, I am south of the border and having an amazing time right now in Puerto Vallarta, Jalisco, Mexico. Down here for LGBTQIA+ pride, but also just to enjoy the local community, which includes this incredibly gorgeous lady to my right. This is Kim Kuzma. And we met 2 years ago, back in 2022, when we were randomly, my husband Brian and I were randomly walking the streets of Vallarta and happened in on a really cool co-working space.
Okay, I thought you were going to say I was working the streets.
No, you weren't working the streets.
Okay, good.
If anyone was, it would be more Brian and I, because
not true.
It's not cheap down here. It's reasonably priced, but you know, sometimes you got to put in a little bit of effort to get there. But no, Kim was inside this amazing co-working space that we found over by the river, right?
Yeah.
Is it, generally speaking?
Joint co-work.
And joint co-working space, but walking in and seeing this incredibly stunning woman, but having no idea, first of all, if she spoke English or Spanish, but then second of all, no, because it's very confusing when you're down here. It's like, okay, most people are bilingual or have some mastery of both, but then being able to meet Kim and talk to Kim and find out she has an incredible backstory. She's not originally from Vallarta. She does real estate down here. She does many other things. She's an incredible performer. We'll cover all of that here on In Conversation with Nick Pagliochini, but I waxed poetic enough. How are you, Kim?
I'm good. It's great to see you again.
It's good to see you. It's good to be home again, in our home away from home.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Let's jump into it.
Okay.
Talk to me about you as a kid. Do you have a nickname when you were young?
Mim.
Mim.
Or Kimmy.
Okay, I love
Passion
it.
killer if a man calls me Kimmy, but Mim.
I love it. Okay. So is the Mim something like a special, like from?
No, my dad just used to call me Mim.
Mim. I
I
love
knew he
it.
was in a good mood.
Oh, what would he call you in a bad mood?
Kimberly.
Kimberly.
Kimberly Diane.
Kimberly Diane Kuzma, like the whole nine.
Yeah.
I got you. Talk to me about Mim. Talk to me about you as a kid. What was it like? Where are you from? Kind of, let's walk through, childhood for you.
Well, I was born in Alberta and I grew up in northern BC, British Columbia, in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And so my father, I would have wondered what he did now, but we had to move within 72 hours all the time. So we moved a lot. So I was an only child. So I tended to spend a lot of time playing the organ or the guitar, taking singing lessons. So as a kid, I was pretty upbeat all the time, kind of shy. But I ended up spending a lot of my time just really focusing on music because I could sit in my room for hours and just play, and I was my own entertainment. So which is a great way. With moving so much, I think it's allowed me to meet people easier in life. Like I've been able to, in this job of real estate, in the job of performing, I'm very at ease with people.
That's great.
So that was good because being an only kid, you can be an introvert as well.
What was it military? Why were you moving in 72 hours?
My dad, he designed highways.
Wow.
So we had to move from one small town to another small town.
Okay, but that's
to
an
another
incredible
small town.
backstory that no one's going to get those details on because, people don't think about that, but like I was going to say highwayman, but that means you're a robber.
Oh.
No,
Yeah.
but no, that's such a unique background.
I remember one time coming, I went to go see my grandma for 2 weeks, and I came back, and Mom and Dad were like, "You're going to be flying to another town." So I didn't get to say goodbye to my friends. So that was, at the time, that was a little tough because you just go to another town.
Right.
But I'm grateful for it now.
Sure now, but
Yeah.
what was it like? I know it's been a couple of years, but what was it like for him back then? What was that? Because that had to be incredibly interesting, challenging. I mean, it obviously has led to who you are now. I know
Yeah,
that's a huge part
absolutely.
of being able to talk to anybody and enter a
Yeah.
room and kind of command the space. But what is it like, kind of taking it back? Let's regress a little bit back to childhood. What was it like for you with that whole process?
Well, you're often the new kid in the class.
Mm-hmm.
So I do remember grade 3. I won't tell her name, but I could give initials. But
Okay.
I came, the most popular boy in class paid attention to me. And I came to school the next day. My pencils were broken in half. My erasers were busted.
Wow.
Would comment between my pages. Kids can be mean. They're
can be.
vicious.
Yeah. And they're very
vicious.
creative, obviously, too.
Yeah.
Comment between the pages. I love that.
Oh, comment, wet comment.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Ugh. So
Very inventive and
yeah, I was gonna say that's very
in
creative.
grade 3.
With that, when you were having those situations, so getting a call and having to move without saying goodbye to your friends, and then also kind of being that only child and also having music being a part of your life so early on, was that something, outside of your kind of natural born talent that you developed, was that something maybe as a coping mechanism that was helpful for you?
Oh, I definitely. I mean, I could spend hours in my room playing my guitar. I used to write a lot and journal. I still have all my journals since 1976
That's amazing.
under lock and key.
I hope so, because I was going to say, purely the documentation on that alone and the names and not just initials that have got to be there, that's wild. When you moved into junior high, and obviously kind of this flirts with a little bit of the conversation that you've already had, but what were the teen years like with all that movement and all that stuff going on for you?
Actually, we didn't move anymore after grade 5. We didn't move anymore. My dad wanted me to have more stability.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it
really
was great. We moved 9 times prior, but we had more stability.
So was your dad still doing highways at that point, or did you transition to something else?
No, he still was.
Okay.
And I really got into figure skating as well, so I was big
Figure skating.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. You are from Canada, which sounds a little bit.
Skate, curl.
Yeah. Did you curl as well?
No.
Okay. So I was going to say, you're very graceful in having seen you perform.
Oh, thank you.
So I could see there's a certain amount of kind of that calm focusedness that shows. You've got some vivaciousness too, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
I'm hanging on, honey.
No, but I'm saying, like, you do have that way of connecting with people, and I think that you have just this like calm grace about you at times. And curling, kind of, I know it sounds a little silly to wax poetic about that random sport on ice, but it's very much kind of you're in the zone. It's a focused situation that way. So when you were now permanently in a location, what was that like? Because the early developmental kind of that, 1st through 5th grade is the core development era before moving into teen years. What was it like when you were now permanently in a place?
Well, it was great. I was able to secure dear friends, and I still, I could see them tomorrow and it'd be like no time has passed, which I really, really appreciate, and still stay in touch with many of them. I think that's an anchor for someone growing up. I think, especially as an only child, to have that good core of friends. And then figure skating definitely took over in my life as well. I loved it. I competed. I was pretty decent at it. I loved it.
That's amazing, though.
Got the legs.
I was going to say, she's got the legs.
Got the legs.
Those gams are looking good still.
Thanks.
Where was your mom with all this? What did your mom do? Was she?
God bless my mom, because we had to move so often. My dad she'd have to get a new job every time we moved. So bless her soul that she just would up and go and, get a job as a cocktail waitress, work at a golf club. I mean, she was very flexible and probably one of the most patient people I know, was sticking together and
See, but I was going to say, you
family
guys were a
going.
core unit of 3, and
Yeah.
like that's a lot, mentally, emotionally, physically, being able to get in and out and really move around. I mean, that says a lot about each of you individually, but as a family unit, as a team, that really says a lot.
Not always easy.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because that's another question I have is, what were some of the challenges that you encountered outside of, kids being, that's got to be a change, because I know that we're in an era in 2024, the world has changed a good amount, and people are moving about, and people are going and doing things, but I don't think we really sit down enough with each other and be like, are you okay? How's everything going? And I know that there's a lot of focus on mental health and everything now, but when we're, in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, in that whole era,
That was not
time
talked
period.
about.
Correct.
No.
And so I think that's where, so what was it like for you? What were, some of those more challenging things that you were able to maybe persevere as a team, work through with?
Well, I do remember at one point talking to mom and dad about wanting a brother and sister.
Okay.
And they looked into adopting.
Oh,
And,
okay.
And it was just, I remember it being so much to fill out, so much that you had to fulfill in order to be able to adopt. And it was just, mom and dad let me have friends stay over every weekend. I was fine.
So you had a community, you had chosen family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I think is really special.
Absolutely.
And, all the way through adulthood, I'm anticipating you had a good rapport and relationship with your parents.
Yeah, and my dad passed when I was 23. And my mom is my rock. I take her on the gay cruises that I've sung on
that's
Aquafest, Brand G.
And is she still back in Canada, or where is she?
She's still in Canada.
In Canada, okay.
But I say to her, I said, Mom, you can little thing. Bianca Del Rio did your makeup on an Aquafest cruise.
See that? If you know, you know. Bianca Del Rio doing mom's makeup is a genuinely big thing. And Bianca, if you happen to be watching, thank you on behalf of Kim's mom.
Oh, my mom loves her.
Oh, that's so sweet. So moving into, out of teens into adulthood, what was your focus and drive? I mean, you obviously started music early,
Singing.
performing.
Absolute
So it was
music.
all singing. So where did skating go in that time period? Did it just kind of...
Well, when you start bruising your tailbone really bad and you're sitting on 5 eider-down jackets at school, it's probably time to put
That's
up
a
the
lot.
skates.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, I turned 18 and it was like I started teaching for a year or two, and then I moved to Vancouver.
Okay.
Yeah, so I moved to Vancouver in '86. Oh God, that's a long time.
It's been a minute. Yeah, I get it.
And started a career there singing and, being a waitress, bartender, doing everything, singing at night. So
But I think-
was always busy.
I think you're somebody in the time that we've known each other who really has followed their passions. And I think
I've
a
been
lot of us
blessed.
don't. Yes.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, along the way, I'm sure you have had some down times, but you've had some high highs. And it really is impressive because so many people do the safe thing.
Yeah.
So many people do what they're told to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to commend you and say how impressive it is to get to know
Thanks.
you, because truly you saw something, you had a talent, you had that charisma, and you went for it, no matter what the situation was.
Oh, it was not easy. I mean, everybody wants to make
Of
it.
course.
So I was sending out packages to Sony Records at the time, and God bless my mom and her boyfriend, rest in peace. They, funded my first CD. I had Nickelback's producer produce it. I had Sarah McLachlan's band, except her drummer, her husband. I had everyone play on it, plus my own band. I spent a lot of money.
Sure.
Which you don't have to do as much now.
Correct.
Being independent. But had it not been for them, I just needed to get started and just focus, because I was waitressing all the time, and you're burnt out and you're just doing gigs for gigs' sake. And
That's what I was going to say, putting your name out there. And we're still in Vancouver at
I
this
was
point?
still in Vancouver.
Okay.
And that's where I got started with the gay scene,
See, and so that's
the
the
gay
thing.
community.
I know that we'll be featuring this for LGBTQIA plus month and everything else here on In Conversation, but specific to that, I think there are certain communities around the world, be it, an orientation, a cultural group, something to that effect, where it's just like that. You're able to really have that connection, and people can see that talent and can appreciate that talent. And I think that's why I commend you again for going out there.
No, I
You
appreciate
saw
it.
there was a spot and you went for it.
Well, I got asked, there was a place called the Royal in Vancouver. For anyone watching from Vancouver, the Royal, back in the day. And I remember coming in there and we'd fill it. It was packed. And I was so nervous. I thought the gay community would, shred me, dice and slice me. And I noticed it was a huge revelation for me that the more I was myself and the more sassy,
Right.
the more they loved me.
Yeah.
And I mean, being fairly shy most of my life, a little quiet. Sure, I was gregarious, but I would tend to be shy. Having realized that I could really be myself with the gay community and perform to them and have a blast and be myself, it was so much fun. And still to this day, sometimes I've had, some people from the heterosexual community ask me, what's with the gay thing? I'm like, who gives a shit?
True.
I mean,
A gig's a gig, and you go where
I
the
had so much
appreciation
fun.
is. No, but that's it. But you go where the connection is. You
Yeah.
go where, some people will say follow the money. But I look at you and say you followed your heart. And that's kind of where it went.
I definitely followed
You
my
got
heart.
bills to pay. Let's be
Well-
real. But I'm just saying, you followed your heart, you followed your passion with music anyway.
Yeah. My mom always used to say, because I would always say, you got to think about where you want to be and law of attraction. And my mom would say, well, when you said wealthy in your mind, you're definitely wealthy in friends, but you should have thought about money as well.
I get it. No, I understand. Having been in media for 17 years now, I know what it's like, paycheck to paycheck, and then some. I know what it's like to couch surf. I know what it's like not being able to make ends meet financially, while you might be able to have the coolest gig on the red carpet or be able to have a radio program or a
Because nobody's
television
paying.
show. No, you're right. And I think
Yeah.
it's all that time and passion and dedication that you really pour into it. And I think that's with having these in conversation sit downs, I'm able to really kind of showcase how
That's good.
challenging it is, but how rewarding it is in the end. And I think that's the
Absolutely.
bigger part. So with you in Vancouver and getting everything together for your first album, what did that look like, especially in that time period for you? I mean, obviously a lot of money involved, but that's a lot of mental, emotional, physical overhead, getting all that stuff coordinated together, working
Yeah.
with other talent, and, just getting an EP together. Like, that's a lot.
Well, I was pretty much in awe, like, especially working with the gentleman that played for Sarah. I just sometimes I mean, this sounds so stupid, but sometimes I would sit there and just go, can't believe I'm working with these people. Like, these people have made it.
Yeah.
So there's probably, I think any entertainer, you can have all sorts of bravado, but in the inner voice, many times is a very different voice than what you portray on stage.
Sure.
I can be very gregarious and look like I am so secure, but those moments of having absolute self-esteem just can crush me at times, lack of self-esteem.
And I was gonna say, that's the hard part, because we are taught in the entertainment industry, you fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
That's really hard at times, because sometimes you are just at the bottom. I know I have been at
Yeah.
the bottom where I am spent.
Yeah.
And so I think that, and I've been in your shoes where I've been surrounded by people where I'm like, holy shit,
Yeah.
how the hell am I where I am right now?
So is it lack of self-esteem or is it just lack of confidence in that moment?
I think it is imposter syndrome is what I've found for myself. And I think that's something that I've talked about a lot on In Conversation. And really, even more so, bringing it into the space because I have to admit it, that I suffer from imposter syndrome a lot. I know I'm incredibly talented. I know that I have a great basis. I know that I have a lot of things that I want to share with people. I want to talk to people like you who have a lot to share with the world that don't have a space or a platform. And I think that's what I love about going into it, but trying to fight through that imposter syndrome at time periods, it's rough. Like, that really is a challenge, no matter how you slice it, to be able to really get through that and figure out how to do it. So with that first EP, what were some of the songs? Talk to me about it.
I actually ended up winning a West Coast Music Award. I beat out Nelly
See,
Furtado
so
in
listen to
nomination.
that. Okay, wait, hold on. So we've got Kim here who's like, so it's my first thing. I'm trying to figure it out. Da, 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 da. Oh, by the way, I won an award. Don't worry.
No,
so
it was
talk to me
very
about
exciting.
It. Yeah. That sounds amazing. So what
That's
was the
good.
first, were you the songwriter on everything? Did you write all?
Not all of them, but
Okay.
it won Best Independent Recording. And
That's amazing.
yeah, it was very cool at the time. I was very proud, very
So
shocked.
do you perform any of those songs to this day?
Sometimes I get people ask me for the song River. I wrote about a boyfriend at the time.
Okay.
Very touching.
Is that on digital now, since we're in the
Oh,
world?
absolutely.
So-
Yeah. Geez, I have like a shelf full of CDs that I could use as coasters.
I get it. And I mean, the thing I love, this is the
Kills
funniest part.
me.
And this is what kills me, and it's going to kill you even more. I love when I hear people talking about vintage regarding CDs. We come from, a pressing, an LP,
Yeah.
a piece of vinyl. That's the vintage.
Aren't they coming back?
They're totally coming back, but I'm saying from our era of a 33 and a 30, like whatever,
Yeah.
you had those specific things. That was our era of vintage, and
Well-
our parents were like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Now when CDs
Yeah.
are, as you said, a coaster,
Yeah.
but more people are like, oh, I went out and bought this vintage CD from Amoeba Music in Hollywood, and I'm like, vintage? What are you talking? Vintage? We're not there yet.
Okay, if 8-track comes back, then that's an issue.
I think it's funny because if you're thinking back to media when I first started with radio and still having, tracks and having to work with carts, which are pretty much 8 tracks, even, that would have been 2000s, early 2000s,
Wow.
still having that at some of the stations. But so with River, what is it like for you as a songwriter? Because I mean, I know that whether you're doing it now or just referencing back to when you were then, because that's a lot. Like a lot of times performers excel at one thing or another and maybe dabble elsewhere. What was it like for you with that first EP? Really.
Well, it was a full CD, and it was very, you could bury your soul in the words, and And sometimes I wrote a song about something, and a woman came up to me and she said, "I can so relate to those words. I know it's about war." It's like, what? But hey, it's whatever it means.
No, that.
Each of us is what matters. Yeah, and I wrote a song called Braveheart, which I really love the trumpet on it. And it's so funny, I don't talk about this often, but it was actually about a calf that died in my arms.
Really? No.
People never knew that about it.
So trumpet. Wait, no. What was the?
A trumpet player. The trumpet is beautiful on the track, but I wrote
Got
a
it.
song, and it's mainly about It's mainly about time is passing. We got to live each day. Who's going to dry my tears when you're gone? And
See,
so
but-
people took it, but the bass line of it
Was the calf
about
that passed
this
away in your
calf
arms.
that died over Christmas in my arms.
But see, I think.
Try to keep it warm.
But that's it.
overnight.
You literally had the connection to take care of
Yeah.
that animal,
Yeah,
and you've allowed that connection to.
turn into a song.
And I think that's amazing because other people are, interpreting it one way or another, or
I'm
connecting
sorry
with
for
it.
ruining it.
No, and I would say I'm sure that you didn't ruin it. Only because I think people love behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And here we are all these years later, where we're able to do, kind of that flashback thing. And I think that's fun. So somebody who's maybe a fan from the beginning is hearing this for the
thanks.
very first time. And so I think it's always something special when you're able to be like, oh, I don't talk about this very often.
Yeah, no, I don't talk
Because
about. I don't
I
think
think-
I've ever said that.
Which is, I
That's
think, is
many
great,
years
though.
ago.
But that's fine, and I think that's great. So after that, and winning your West Coast Indie Award,
Mm-hmm.
what did 20s and 30 something Kim look like? What
Well,
was
just
was
trying
that?
to make it. I spent so much money. Just I flew out to Toronto to do Pride there, and actually the best advice I ever got was from the manager of Katie Lang at the time, Tom Wanagus. Forgive me. Larry Wanagus, that was his name. He said to me, I said, I'm thinking of going to the States to start performing down there. And he said, if I were you, hook up with the gay men's choruses in the States.
You're not wrong.
And it was brilliant. So I went to go visit a boyfriend in San Francisco, and I think it was like the third day I was there. I had an interview with the gentleman that was Scott, that was running the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus at the time. And he said, I don't normally hire people that don't have big names, but I like you. And he liked my music.
Right.
And so he said, so my first gig in the States was Palace of Fine Arts with the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus.
Which is a really cool venue.
It's a cool venue with none other than, oh, sorry, I shouldn't be tapping.
Oh, you're fine.
Oh my God, I'm having a total brain fart. You know, the woman with the big glasses, gray hair, famous.
Phyllis Diller?
Hello,
No.
Dolly.
Oh, Carol Channing.
Carol Channing.
There you go.
Oh my God, you win. You win a borough.
It's that queer background. I got the
Sorry.
history lesson done.
Carol Channing.
Carol Channing.
Yeah, I did a
How
gig with Carol
incredible.
Channing. We did Davie Symphony Hall together for
Okay.
a Christmas concert. Did Castro Theater. Did about 8 concerts with them. It was so much fun, and I got so many dear friends from that, and it was just a
See-
wonderful experience. So thank you, Larry Wanagus, for that.
I was going to say,
information.
that's awesome, Larry, but
Yeah.
also right place, right time, and all
Yeah.
those opportunities that presented themselves. So it's a good piece of advice, I think. So now moving into, you have been performing and you have moved from Canada into the States, and then now going, fast forwarding to now we're south of the border. So not only did you start up north, you went to the middle, and now you're down in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come south of the border? What brought you down this way?
I reached out in 2005 to Mark Rome at the time, who was running the Palm Cabaret. I was asked in 1999, someone else told me, oh, you should go look at it. But I was about to go to Europe and sing. And I was like, I really wanted to keep the career moving, try to tour. So I ended up coming here 2005 to audition, and I was so excited I forgot my backing track. So I sang to my own CD and did harmonies. a room full of gays, Palm Cabaret on Olas Altas. Gracias to the Palm Cabaret for starting this girl's career here. And Mark and I got along really well. And he was like, sounds good. 2 weeks. When do you want to start? And then so 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and a month, and 2 months. And suddenly I'm spending the whole season here. But when I started, I mean, there was, Ida Slapter, Amy Armstrong, and there was Kinsey Six, B-Girls, not many performers. So there wasn't a lot of competition. Now, geez.
Yeah,
there's a lot of competition.
We talked to Juan Alvarado, who's the owner of La Catrina Cantina, which is an incredible space that you are seeing us in if you're tuning in on YouTube. If not, be sure to check us out at In Conversation with Nick on YouTube will be the easiest place to track it down. Or check the link in bio at Nick Pagliochini on Instagram or This Weekend with Nick. That'll help get you there as well. You can always go to thisweekendwithnick.com in the show notes to get more details about that. But going back to Juan, he's just said it's flush with talent now.
It's going to
really
be like
is.
80 performers a week.
Yeah, I was like, it's not, for me in the time period, which has been minimal, but for my time in Vallarta, like, there's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that from 2022 through now, having seen, like you, independent artists that are incredibly talented, like we talked with Juan, they're cutting their teeth down here. They're getting their first opportunities. And it's really a unique space and a really kind of special space.
Well, I think the tough thing for some performers coming here, they think, I'm going to come to PV, I'm going to get my own show. And I'm not being negative.
No.
But I'm always the first one to say, you got to be realistic.
Right.
Unless you're really known in the States already or Canada already. I think you have to be realistic that there are a lot of performers here. I think you have to be well aware you're going to have to hustle your ass. And that means like 7 years, I humped that beach promoting to all the boys, threatening to take my bikini off if they didn't come to my show. So they came out of sheer fear.
But I think too, and I think this is a great
you have to be prepared to do that.
Right. I think it's a great opportunity though, because the hustle is alive with you to this day.
My God.
And you got into real estate as well. So I think that you not only are sharing that little bit of wisdom, we're not going to say it's a negative.
No, it's not negative.
It's a piece of wisdom. So you hustled those 7 years, but you also are in real estate down here.
Well, it made sense. I turned 55 and I was like, okay, I cannot live my life based on how many tickets am I selling tonight in order to pay my rent.
Sure.
But I've been so blessed. I've been singing. I was still traveling. I was still singing in Agunquit every summer in Agunquit, Maine at the front porch. And actually, Juan, didn't I see you in Agunquit as well?
Yes.
I thought so. I remember seeing you and Bill there. So, and it's incredible because then I was able to bring friends and performers from PV to Agunquit and introduce them there. And so it's been a wonderful reciprocal situation. And you get to a point where it's like, okay, you're not going to make it.
Right.
Your dream of becoming this big touring star is not happening. So now you got to work. And I think that's the hardest thing to get to as a performer, because my dream was always to make it.
Right.
And then at that point, you're like, okay, I just need to work. But I need to have fun and I need to have integrity about it and love what I do.
Sure.
So that happened.
No, I think that's good. And I think it's a great place for us to pause for part one of In Conversation with Kim Kuzma. And we'll be getting a little bit deeper into exactly what it's like in 2024, maybe a little talk of the pandemic and what real estate and being a performer here in Puerto Vallarta is like in part two. Again, I've already talked about it, but if you want to learn more about La Catrina Cantina, where we're located, about Puerto Vallarta, anything that's going on in and around south of the border this weekend or beyond, check out thisweekendwithnick.com. Also, the link in bio at Nick Pagliochini and This Weekend with Nick on Instagram. The easiest way to get a hold of details and find out more, and also, so much more to be had. So thank you, and Kim and I will see you out and about this weekend.